sacrificing your health, your team, and your culture. Sustainable growth, it's not just a strategy, it's really a leadership test. And today we're going to dive deep into the real mechanics of scale. You'll hear strategies, honest stories, and tangible frameworks from leaders who have been there and done that without the burnout. And a quick heads up, today's session is also going to be featured on our podcast, Scale Smart, Grow Fast. So if you hear something that hits home, you'll be able to replay it later on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. So today, let's go ahead and dive in and meet today's incredible panel. First, we've got Bethany LaFlamme, an attorney, investor, and best-selling author. Bethany helps entrepreneurs scale their wealth and freedom through strategic leverage, not burnout. She's the author of The Power of OPE and leads a global movement to build aligned, extraordinary lives. Christopher Flipiak, sales consultant and coach. He works with CEOs of expert-based businesses to 12x growth through mindset and sales alignment. His integrated approach helps leaders add over $1 million in revenue without losing control or energy. We also have Alicia Madlam, the VP of People and Systems, Found Search Marketing. With over 20 years in marketing agency leadership, Alicia has scaled teams through acquisition and built operational systems that protect culture while driving performance. And finally, last but not least, we've got Saima Gilani, founder of Talent Edge World. Saima is a globally experienced coach and HR leader who helps executives lead with clarity, energy, and purpose. Her core energy coaching framework builds leadership that sustains both performing and well-being. Welcome everyone to the panel. Let's start here. What does sustainable scale mean to you, and why do so many leaders get it wrong?
I would like to jump in first, if that's fine. So for me, a sustainable scale is really like increasing the productivity of the organization, of the company, while not losing the focus on the energy, on the clarity, and above all, the well-being of the people. So what happens mostly, when leaders get it wrong is when they primarily focus on the productivity, they focus on the numbers, they focus on the metrics. I mean, that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong about it. But the problem is, while doing so, they lose the focus primarily on the well-being of the people. So here I would like to quote, recently I had gone through this book like Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, where he says that when we ask the CEO, what is your priority? And they usually say customers, right? So, but the truth is, might be true for small companies, but as the companies scale up, they grow bigger and bigger, that connection becomes smaller and eventually it becomes zero. So what is the truth here? Truth is, CEOs or the leaders, they are responsible for the people, and people eventually they take care of your customers. So you really have to start backwards. So that is, I think, where leaders really get wrong.
I think to build on that, often sort of the focus, to your point, is on numbers where people be like, I want to grow margin to something, or I want to grow year over year to something. And they lose the purpose. They lose who they are. They lose the connection to mission, vision, and values. And that's what drives purpose and why. That's what gets people to put in the time it takes to achieve those new margins and achieve that growth. And so I think it starts to be this focus on, we have to hit this numerical value in order to grow, instead of looking at the full growth journey, which is growing people or growing services or whatever it is you provide. So, to build on that, I think that's where a lot of times things will get lost and you lose the connection to why you started or what you're doing, what the purpose of why you're all there. And then people get disengaged and you start to see that downtrend very quickly.
I love that we're having this conversation, actually, because I think too much we focus on the numbers and not on the people that get us there. And I think the biggest thing for scaling, of course, is to leverage other people. I wrote a whole book on it, right? But in order to do that, in order to leverage other people, and I specifically say leverage and not use, because we want to make sure that we're building up those people, because it's only sustainable if it's a win for everybody. So all your other people that are helping you get to your vision, to your dream, and everything else, that has to help them get to theirs. It's got to work for everybody. And I think we lose sight of that a lot of times when we're focused just on the numerical metrics. And I love that we're having this conversation.
Great insights there. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Harley. So I think, when you're thinking about doing something sustainably, it means that you can do it for a long time and it doesn't eat away at the base level resources that you've had, so that as you grow your company or grow anything or grow yourself, you have more of something, not less, that's coming from that scale and growth. And I think where that happens, I think it's about developing the skill sets as in your organization around change and growth. So how can you build a culture, right, that embraces and has the skills required to continually change and grow? And when you develop that as a competency, that's going to create sustainability in the people and in the organization as a whole.
Awesome. Great insights there. I'm excited to dive into some of the things you guys said. Bethany, you write about aligned living. What's the cost when founders scale misaligned, and how can they catch that early?
I think the biggest cost, and not being aligned could mean a number of things, right? If it's not driving towards a stated goal or big vision, that's where people get this wrong a lot. Excuse me, is that they don't state the goal. They're like, I'm busy running a business, I'll figure out and I'll daydream later, and they're just working to work and they don't really know where they're headed. And that is going to lead to misalignment. And so I think the biggest risk of growing is that you grow for the sake of growth, but it's not scalable, it's not sustainable, and then you find yourself getting pulled way back. So you 2 steps forward, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back, right? So if you're not aligned, you are going to backslide because it's not going to be sustainable. And so it's going to take a little bit longer to get to that ultimate goal if, 1, you haven't identified it, or 2, you've got people outside their lanes, right? And entrepreneurs are really notorious for doing all the things, right? And so identifying your lane, staying in your lane, and realizing that you get to do that. And so I think how you can catch it early is it's literally stop quieting that voice, that inner knowing. I know it doesn't seem logical and it seems really soft, and why the hell is a lawyer talking about how you feel? But I think that especially as women, so no offense to Harley or Christopher, I can't speak for you, but as women, we spend our whole lives trying to quiet her down. Right. And the truth is, if it feels misaligned, it probably is. And we need to trust that. Right. And we need to recalibrate and understand that that's actually just as important as the data that we're looking at in terms of the numbers and all those things. If it feels misaligned, that means it maybe sucks for you and you're not going to keep doing it at the level that you need to be doing it. Right. If it's painful, you got to figure out a way to make it not painful. And so I'd like to tell all the entrepreneurs out there that anybody who tells you that it just has to suck for a really long time, don't listen to that. It doesn't. Your job is to get through that suck as fast as possible and have it be enjoyable. This is your life. This is it. It doesn't start after something else happens.
Yeah, being a business owner does not have to suck.
That's right. It doesn't have to suck. Yeah. Sometimes your job's to get out of the suck as fast as possible.
It's a really interesting awareness, Bethany, right? Because as you're growing your business and you're growing into the person who's going to have a higher level of business, everything has a couple of sides to it. So there's good and bad in everything that you're doing, and a lot of one person's suck could be another person's love.
That's
right?
their lead. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And that alignment comes from some awareness that that's the truth, and then choosing where to put your focus and making sure that you're doing what you really want to be doing. Because if you're not in love with the work you're doing or the desire or your business, then you're going to self-sabotage, and you're going to be more on the suck side of life than the love side of life.
Yeah. And
cool.
The biggest obstacle, I think, there is our own mindset, right? I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching and all the things, right, to figure out just to shift my mindset and I get to do the things I love because I said so.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's that's where I would like to jump in here, that what you love and what sucks you is really from the coaching philosophy is like, listen to your who, listen to your inner who, like, when you listen to your inner self, what really drives you, what is your passion, I mean, that is really, where the whole magic actually happens. So, yeah.
So, Christopher, you coach CEOs through high stakes sales growth. How do you help them expand revenue without becoming the bottleneck?
I think Harley, it's a good question, and I think it's about understanding what sales really is, and that you've started a business, and that sales is going to be a important part of that, and believing that sales really is an expression of love or service. So there's a mindset component that goes along with going, hey, I'm going to master my own sales work as the CEO, meaning they don't have any resistance to any part of sales. I don't have any resistance to any part of strangers. I don't have any resistance or stories around money, or at least I've become aware enough around those topics not to allow them to stop me, and that I can create whatever amount of money I want whenever I want to. And as you go on that journey, you'll start selecting for strategies and tactics and behaviors and teammates that are based on cause and effect, not coming from your own belief systems and your own fear, worry, and doubt. And as you do that, you go, okay, cool. I'm in alignment with money and sales, and I've either mastered that or on the journey to mastering that. And now I can start to build that sales culture, that sales as an expression of love culture into my business. And I think that creates a lot of flow. And that's what frees up the CEO or the founder to not be the bottleneck in their business, and scale sales in a way that is really effective and efficient.
I'd like to add on to that too, because working with a lot of CEOs, like more in the operator role, and getting a visionary person to kind of understand how do you get that out of your brain and make that into something that's real beyond yourself, is once you start to get going, you're starting to get sales, it's them understanding, how do I get this out of my head and into others so that I'm not the only person who can do this job? Because at some point, someone else has to understand how it's being done, and or understand, like, what do you have to do as a CEO? What can you train other people to do? And then what can you let go of? So you can let go of other duties. So maybe you just sell, maybe you are that person, but you're no longer doing the 50 other pieces that are there because you've surrounded yourself with the team. And I think it's the CEOs letting go a little bit and having some like trusted, honest people, whether that's working for them or an advisory council or whatever, to say like, hey, you're hitting that point where you can't do all of this anymore. And what would happen today if you couldn't do this? Okay, we need to start getting this out and into other people's brains with some trusted people. So I think you sort of have the initial bottleneck when you start, where you're like, it's just me and I have to do all the things. And then as you grow, that continues, and you have to figure out how to make it not just you, and make it, though it's not a cult of personality, but it is really the thing that you are selling and not just you that you're selling.
Yeah, that's super cool, Alicia, because you can build what I hear you saying is you want to build those skills and those strategies and tactics into the business, not into any one person. And as you move them down into the business where there's organizational competency and there's systems and processes, then the CEO is really free to pick what they love to do. And CEOs, like all of us, have a wide variety of things that they enjoy to do, right? So who knows where they're gonna lean. So cool. I think that's super cool awareness and insight you shared.
Yeah, I just loved at what Alicia just mentioned, letting go. So as we have like different types of leadership, one is like laissez faire, That's the French term that translates into let it go, let them do it, right? And I myself, and for me, I find it like leadership is equivalent to parenting. I'm a mom, I have two beautiful boys. So I find as a parent, when you let your kids do the work, autonomously, you trust in them, that's fine. First time they might get it wrong, second time, but that's how they learn. Same way leaders, when they trust their teams, that's fine. They just fall. They will get back. When you are on their back there to support them, that's when the whole, trust environment builds, and people will flourish, and so will the companies and organizations. And the load of bricks on your shoulder will be off. So yeah, that would be like incredible.
Some great answers there. Appreciate that. Going to Alicia, you've led teams through growth and acquisition. What were some of the breaking points you had to solve for? And what did you learn about the systems that scale people, not just processes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, helped grow businesses, helped get a business acquired. I think the biggest thing I've seen, I've spent most of my career in marketing agencies, so they can grow really fast, and a lot can happen at once, and it's a volatile environment that can happen. But across the 5 I've worked at in my career, what I've seen is the concept of heroic contributor versus operationalization. So most of small companies start with 1 or 2 heroic contributors. They're the people like strapping the thing to their back and dragging everyone with them. They know how to do everything. They are the people that are driving the work forward. But at some point, you cannot scale and be dependent on a few single points of failure. And oftentimes, we were just chatting about that person might be the CEO. And so you have to be kind of have an honest conversation there. But you have to figure out, how do I get the information from these heroic contributors, and how do I operationalize that in a way that makes it scalable and sustainable and move beyond single points of failure people. If you don't do that, you stymie your growth, but B, you also create unfireable people. And with unfireable people, you're like, this person may not fit. Not everybody you start with is everyone you need to grow with, but you've made it so you are shackled to this person or these people because everything's in here for them and you've never gotten it out. And they are attached to this one client or service or person or manager. So a lot of the breaking points we've seen, especially small organizations, adding a couple of people changes the dynamic, right? Going from 1 to 5 or 5 to 15 or 20 to 30, those are big jumps for companies that are there. Going to 70 to 100, that's a large jump that requires some things. And if you don't start to right from the beginning have training and documenting and backups and understanding of how things are operating, you let that live inside a person, you make it so, I think Bethany was talking about, you make this cycle, right? Grow, lose some stuff, grow, lose some stuff. And you just get stuck here. You never get here. You're just stuck here forever. So that's the major breaking point that I've seen in growing some of these teams, is not getting out of that cycle of heroic contributor fast enough. And you have to fail 2 or 3 times until you figure out, the real way to grow is to use these people in a strategic way, not fully depend on them to where if they leave or their knowledge goes out of date, that the rest of us, the impact of that is ginormous.
I love that you're saying this, because I think that this still goes back to what you said a minute ago, which is the letting go, right? If the CEO can't let go or can't trust, then it's almost impossible to get real systems and processes in place, because they want to feel valuable. And this again goes back to the mindset of, and I'm guilty of it myself in the past, so I can speak from experiences, is that, yeah, but I'm the CEO. I'm the one who has to show how valuable I am, because I can't be just off at a spa while my team is running things. I've got to be in it, showing them how hard they want me out of their way, right? And so it was a lot of work mindset wise to realize that my team wants to be in their lane without me pulling them down, right? And they want me in my lane because that's where I shine, and they don't want to be in my lane. And so I think letting go is the hardest thing to do, but it is the most critical, and it requires trust, not just of your team, but of yourself in just determining where the team is headed, trusting yourself, and kind of selling the team on the vision so that everybody kind of knows where we're heading and can really get bought in. And I think a lot of CEOs and founders skip that part because it feels soft, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm daydreaming, and I don't want to spend time to write out this vision of, it seems a little fluffy, right? But I think it's critical, because if the team's not bought in and excited, eventually they're going to burn out, because they're just helping you do tasks. You know, they're not helping drive this train towards some amazing destination that you haven't painted a picture of.
Saima, your work focuses on leadership energy. What are the invisible drains that leaders often overlook, and how can they recover the momentum before burnout hits?
Yeah, yeah. Good question, Harley. Well, I think those invisible trains, first of all, they are your own inner, internal narratives, like your inner voices that keep telling you. In coaching language, we call them gremlins, and we all have those gremlins, right? So, yeah. And they could be anything. The job of those gremlins is to keep you safe. But the truth is, they are actually making you smaller, and they are throwing you in that unsafe zone. So one of those gremlin messages could be, I cannot stop. I have to go on. I have to go on, right? So I cannot take breaks. Even if I am on vacation, I cannot disengage completely. I have to keep checking in, what my team is doing, what my organization is doing. While doing so, when you're off on the vacation and you're continuously checking in, seeing what your team is doing, you're same time you're giving a wrong message to your team that I don't trust you, right? So that is one thing, those, and there's a very beautiful book. I have read it myself. We coaches have gremlins as well. Taming Your Gremlins by Rick Carson, where he beautifully explains how to overcome those gremlins. So first of all is very important and essential component of emotional intelligence, that is self-awareness. First you have to be first and foremost aware about those gremlins. That's when you will embrace them, and that's when you will start working on them and overcoming them. So I would say that is first thing. And the second thing, what we are just discussing, letting go. So it's about creating boundaries. So when they have unclear boundaries, no clear roles and responsibilities, and you see the leader of the organization, the CEO, he would end up doing everything from administration operations to building the strategy. So again, unclear boundaries, they slowly push them towards burnout. So here again, you have to make sure your boundaries are clean and clear, everybody's roles responsibilities are clear, so that everybody does not end up doing everything. And I have worked with both type of leaders. I have worked with leaders who trust you, and I have seen the kind of environment in those companies, where the leaders primarily lead through transformational or through servant leadership, that is like charismatic, visionary. They focus on the well-being of the people. And I have seen leaders who primarily operate from transactional leadership style, give and take, reward and punishment, or maybe micromanage. And I have seen people going into high amount of burnouts in those cultures. So that is the primary difference. You really need to set your boundaries clean and listen to your inner voices. Sometimes taking a pause, just breathe, some grounding exercise, those micro pauses is very important to really start from yourself and then spread it to your organization and the team.
I love that energy came up in this discussion, because there are buckets that we all have, right? Time is a bucket and it's finite. Finances are a bucket and it's finite. But we often forget that energy is a bucket and it is also finite. So if you do not replenish yourself, if you let that bucket run down, you're not going to be able to show up for your team and or you demonstrate that burnout to your team, as you were saying. So I think we don't often think of that as something that's trackable, or starting to think about like what tasks are high energy, what tasks are low energy. How do I sculpt my day around that? How do I, as I become a business, like build that into how I price what I do? How do I build that into how something is staffed? We think it's soft, to Bethany's point of some things that are soft, but it truly is a huge piece of something to consider, is how much energy does it take to do this thing? Because it is a finite bucket and I only have so much to give. give. My team only has so much to give. So how do we optimize that in a way that gets what we need out the door, but doesn't burn the team out? So I love that energy came up, because I think it's something that's being talked about more and more, but still often gets pushed aside for some of these more harder metrics or more trackable metrics like utilization or something like that. But it really does impact what the team is capable of doing and what they're willing to give when the times are asking for that.
I love that too. We borrowed from, I think it came from Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time. I leverage other people's everything, right? I borrowed it from somewhere. I think it was Dan Martell. But we have our team, if it seems like someone's either not getting things done on time, or they're dragging, or the first thing we do, instead of saying, hey, we're going to punish you, to your point, Seema, is it's have I done all I need to do to make sure you're operating in your lane? And so we have them do a time and energy audit, but it's both time and energy. What thing is taking up all of your time, but also what is taking up all the bandwidth in your brain for that creative energy? Because maybe you're not the person who should be doing it. Believe it or not, there's somebody in my email inbox that likes to check off that task. If I go in my inbox, I'm down half a day. Like I can't. And so if that takes up too much of my energy, and it ruins me from being creative. I have team members who just like to dig in, and so they should be doing it and not me. And I think the time and energy audit is a really good tool, because both things are important, because both buckets can run dry.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to stick with this energy topic. It's really going somewhere, I think. And I want to talk about the trade-offs. And this is just open to the panel. What's one hard decision you've made that protected your energy or your team's energy, and how did you make peace with it?
Maybe I would like to talk about it quite briefly. So it was 2 years back, I moved from France to United States, and I was then working as, I was pretty lucky to get into a job, just in 1 month as part of the leadership team. And so my previous background is really the soft side of the human resource, talent management, talent development. And so over the time, I realized, what I'm doing is not aligned with my values. And although my role was such where people would come to me and they would expect, I am the key point, they were expecting, well-being programs and all that, will come from the global people culture lead. So unfortunately, that was not happening. So my leadership was more focused on productivity and metrics, and my focus was more on empathy, leading with empathy. I would say both approaches were correct in their own ways, but it's about that, what we're discussing, alignment. So the value alignment was not there. And eventually, one fine day, after almost a year, I decided nothing is working out. So I think I have to step back and, and listen to my who, and listen to what I really want to do. That was a difficult phase for me. And I still remember how hard it was to press that send button of my resignation email. I have never been that, that nervous ever in my life, but I did it. So, and I took a break that time. I was like, okay, do I want to go in another job hunt, or just want to listen to what I want to do? I took a pause, I self-introspected, and coaching came across. And this is what I was doing major chunk of the time, and I love doing it. That was my passion. And I was like, voila, so here I am. So that was a turning point. I was like, okay, now I don't have to wait for the approvals. I don't have to wait for yes or no's. I can just work with anybody. And, as a core energy coach, as a mindset coach, I can turn all the stones, upside down. And this is my journey. And since I decided and I embraced that coaching journey, I never looked back. It just changed me completely. And I keep saying everybody around me since then that, it's a very foundation principle of our coaching, that life is a game, not to be won or lost, but played. So just enjoy the journey. Don't think about the destination. It will come. So yeah, that was a game changer.
Along the lines of trusting your team, I think it's also important that the teams trust the leaders as well. And so one of the decisions that we had to make, we had a client that spent a lot of money with us, had broad reach to refer or not refer, or say good or not good things about us, but they were really abusive to my team. And I had to make the decision to fire them as a client so that my team knows that I protect them over the money. Right. And there's a risk, of course, of that, this person, if I piss them off, they could do a lot of damage. Of course, did it diplomatically. But I think that was a really important step in letting my team know that they could trust me to take care of them and that they were more important than a singular client, regardless of how much reach they had or how much money they were spending with us. But that's not a sustainable way for us to grow if I'm burning my team out for a client.
Well, Bethany, I'm glad you brought that up because we actually had a live question from the audience. Kendra asked, can you talk about the importance of team morale and what a leader can do to incorporate inspiration and encouragement? I think you touched on that in your story. Open it up to the panel, if you want to speak to this question as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we don't necessarily always think about as leaders is how many conversations we have behind the scenes and how much we're not necessarily communicating to our team. And I think they really want to have information. They want to know what's going on. I think you have to define what transparency means in your organization, but I think some version of that, of like letting people in and know we're all in the same boat, rowing in the same direction. As a leader, I'm not just sitting on my thrones of cash, like telling you what to do. I'm in this too, right? And we're in this too, and be able to say things like this sucks or this was great or whatever those are. I think there's a communication and transparency piece that directly has a tie to team morale because it allows buy-in. It's like we're all in this together, we're all going. If something's gone wrong, my goal is to acknowledge that and give you a solution to move forward. If things are going well, it's to tell you how we keep doing that with all of us keeping our sanity, our health, our time, our energy, all those things. So I think we tend to not want to say things if they're not 100% true, or we tend not to want to share if it's not completely worked out. But our team craves that, and letting them know that we're in it with this, letting them know what's going on for that buy-in, I think keeps morale up, especially when things are not going well or when you are facing a big bump as a company. It says, hey, we're here, we acknowledge this, and we're working to make this better for everyone. And here's how things might change, but know that we're all in this together. I think that's really super important, especially the larger the organization gets and the more the leadership gets from day-to-day, potentially direct reports and stuff like that, is saying we're all in this together and communicating what's going on.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more on this, Alicia. I mean, clear communication is very, very important. I have seen like what a chaos it can create if leaders are not clear on communication. And I teach, in the core energy leadership, like we have, every individual has access to 7 levels of energy from level 1 to level 7. Level 1 is like overwhelm, and then level 2 is frustration and anger. And if you don't clearly communicate, your people will go in level 2 energy. They will be frustrated, believe me. Even your best people, you will see them drained. So yeah, that's so true.
Oh yeah. And we can't stop DM culture, right? If you have Slacks or Teams, it's like, you don't know what the narratives are happening in those DMs, but you know they're probably not friendly to you if you're not communicating. You don't want to read those logs probably, but know that you cannot stop the pace of that communication. So you have to get out in front of it. You have to be able to communicate there, because if not, everyone's behind the scenes making up a story that you should be telling. And you have to know you cannot beat it, but you can try to get out in front of it as fast as you can. And to keep that consistent communication helps squash those narratives as fast as possible and rewrite the script to be like, no, really, this is what's going on. But if you don't, those Slack DMs fly fast and furious. I love and hate Slack or Teams or any version of it, right? You're like, it's so great, but also I wish it didn't exist. So I think that's the nature of many of our technologies.
Absolutely.
I believe there's an opportunity to model as a leader the attitude that you want and the culture that you want in the organization, and understanding that business, like life, like everything, has a rhythm up and down cycles. And if your circumstance controls your attitude or your emotional state, then you're going to be on a roller coaster ride as an organization and a leader, instead of going, no, look, like stuff that we want is going to happen. Stuff that we don't want is going to happen. We're going to make mistakes, right? We're going to move forward. We're going to move backwards. And if you can show up and go like, all of that is part of our change and growth process, and demonstrate that, I think that improves the culture of the organization tremendously and the safety within the organization. I think the best way to do that is to model that as a leadership team, and then teach to that skill, right? Because most of us didn't learn how to do that growing up. Like we tend to have an external locus of control and a little bit of a victim mindset going on, where the world is happening to us and then we respond based on that. But if you can switch that and teach that skill, and then hire team that wants to participate in that and have an attitude, and like have the right attitude, because again, morale, culture, how you feel, what you think about, those are all choices that we get to make on a moment to moment, day by day basis. So as the leader, you want to model, share that you're choosing for the benefit of the organization and the results that you ultimately want. And those results that you're choosing also really, really matter, because if you're going to have a better attitude, or it's going to be easier to have a better attitude if you're doing something that you really love, right? If it's coming from a place of true desire, like we talked about earlier, if it's coming about just like about hitting the numbers, sure, like hitting the numbers are great and the operations can matter, but if it's not coming from a place of love, a place of desire, alignment with your purpose, everyone's going to get burned out, right? You're going to run out of energy. But if you're aligned with what you really want and what you really desire, you're going to get the energy to do the thing, and you can actually expand your energy, and you can do more things more efficiently, so you have more time and you can see opportunities to bring in more money and more cash more quickly.
Awesome. Well, as we come here into the final lightning round question, I'm going to ask a question, and when you answer the question, I'd love for you as a panelist to share the best way for the audience to connect with you if they want to learn more about you or continue the conversation. And here's the question. We'll start back with you, Christopher. What's your best advice for a business leader who wants to scale without the burnout?
Well, I think it's about developing a skill set around your burnout. Like, what do you do with that when you're starting to feel burned out? And how do you create, so I really like to think about like business as these skill sets, right? You have this mindset skill set, you have this strategy and tactics skill set, you have this behavior skill set, and whatever you're trying to do, there's skill sets and competencies that you can learn and create more awareness and knowledge and practice around. So if the goal is to scale without burnout, it's to go, what is the skill set required to scale without burnout? And I know that's a question, but the first awareness is to go, that's what I want to do. I think, two ways that I would recommend doing that is really developing a skill set around feeling your feelings and moving emotion so that you can create clarity on what it is you want. And then also having someone in your corner, whether that's a coach or a mentor, that can really support you in the direction you're going and help you see those blind spots and those mistakes you're making that can lead to burnout, like overworking or having the wrong team with you. So
excellent. And the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, for sure. The best way to get in touch with me is through my website, ChristopherFlipiak.com, or through LinkedIn /Christopher Flipiak. And there's some really some articles on there that can help with some of the things that we've been talking about in terms of scaling and maintaining your energy. So thanks for having me on the show today.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Over to you, Bethany.
I think that the best first advice for founders who want to scale is really figuring out what your lane is so that you can spend as much time as possible in your lane. And your lane it's three things, and it's got to be all three things. It's what you're amazing at, like your unique superpower, better than anybody else, at least in the company, maybe in the world. Two, what absolutely lights you up, what makes you jump out of bed in the morning and say, I cannot believe this is my life. I can't believe this is my job. I can't believe people pay me to do this. And three, it's got to move you closer to your ultimate goals or vision for your life. It's got to be all three. And then your job in your business is to do only things in your lane as much as humanly possible and find the other people that can do literally everything else. I think that's the best way to scale without burnout. And you've got to maybe work with Sima to figure out that you get to do that.
Absolutely. And what's the best way for people to connect with you, Bethany?
It's actually on Instagram. All the things that I do and all the places I am, we're going to be on Instagram. So it's Bethany_LaFlamme.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Over to you, Sima.
Yeah, well, I would be biased with the energy. So I would say as core energy coach, and I would say like stick to your energy. When I say energy, it's the anabolic energy. So lead with your anabolic energy first. That would be your first step. And trust me, energy is contagious, whether negative or positive. If you show up in your workplace with the anabolic energy, for me, when I said like 7 levels of energy, anything from level 4 and above is your anabolic energy. When you see opportunities, when you trust people, when you find connection with everyone and everything around you, that is your anabolic energy. And when you come up with that anabolic energy, you just give it to your people around you, and they will have manifold, I would say, there won't be any signs of burnout, and they will have their purpose will be directly connected with the purpose of your company. So they will have a true sense of belongingness. And then comes strategy. So energy, then strategy. So that is my advice to entrepreneurs or the leaders of the business world. So yeah.
Awesome. And how can people connect with you?
Well, I have my website, talentedgeworld.com. So feel free, book a discovery session or get connected with me if you want to know more about energy leadership, how it works. We have like beautiful assessments there. And simply, you can also connect with me, on the LinkedIn, Sima Gilani. So I would be there. Anything, any discussion around energy, would love to do that.
All right. Thank you, Sima. All right. Last but certainly not least, Alicia.
Thank you. You've all said just great, wonderful things. So I think where all focus is really make sure you feel solid in the mission, vision, values, and purpose work that you have for your company. So really solidly know what that is, really solidly understand how the things you're going to build will connect to those things so you can share that out to your team and so that they will understand why they are doing things. A lot of people can get into burnout because they don't understand why. They're just on a hamster wheel of tasks and they don't understand any connective tissue to what this actually doing. What is the connective tissue between that individual's performance and the company getting to where it's supposed to go, then to the team and then everyone else. So I think, again, we've talked about people feel like that might be soft or they don't want to take that time, or they set their revenue goals, but they haven't set those goals. I think really leaning in and doing that work early, feeling very solid about that work. And as you build from that place, build from the place of these choices I'm making is achieving this purpose. These choices I'm making are achieving this mission and vision. And if it doesn't feel right, take the time to edit that and make sure that it still does feel like where you're trying to go. And then set the other goals off of that. Say, okay, in order to achieve this mission, we need this revenue, or we need this margin, or we need whatever this is. And I think you can keep that at the core. It gives people something to come back to when times are feeling heavy or tough, or just even in the positive. We've got a lot going on. How are we supposed to get this all done? They understand why they're doing it, and while you're doing it, why you're asking them to do these things.
Great feedback there. And what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Alicia Kaiser Madlam. You can find me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much to our panelists for bringing clarity, honesty, and strategies our audience needs right now. And thank you for all of you that joined us live today. Remember, scale isn't just about growth. It's about protecting what makes that growth worth it. And if you're ready to scale with the right systems and the right support, I have a free masterclass that builds on what you heard today. It's available to our audience. You can watch it right now at workergenix.com/bonus-masterclass. And again, thank you all for tuning in live today. We'll see you all on the next Executive Edge Live.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.